Officially, Russian President Vladimir Putin has 2 daughters, but there is also a third one, an alleged illegitimate daughter named Elizaveta. Her mother was once an ordinary cleaning lady, but her life changed completely after the birth of her daughter. For a long time, the girl hid her face and lived under different last names, but journalists eventually managed to find her. But how did her life change after the publication of a journalistic investigation? How does this girl live today? And where is she now? What did she recently say about her father that shocked the public? Watch this video to the end to learn about the life of the secret daughter of the Russian leader. Let's begin. Every time the conversation turns to Vladimir Putin, the attention is focused not only on politics, but also on his personal life. His marriage to his only wife, Lyudmila, lasted almost 30 years. In this union, 2 daughters were born, Maria and Ekaterina. But in 2013, the couple officially announced their divorce. According to Lyudmila, family life with a man constantly occupied with state affairs became impossible. Rumors about Putin's romances followed him always. Sometimes it was interpreters, sometimes athletes, sometimes mysterious women from his close circle. The media paid special attention to gymnast Alina Kabeva, who was often called his new companion. But no one could have imagined that in the president's life there would be a simple cleaning lady. The story of Svetlana Krivonogik resembles a Cinderella tale, but in this story there is an unexpected twist. How did an ordinary cleaner manage to capture Putin's attention and become one of the richest women in Russia? Svetlana was born in 1975 in a very ordinary Soviet family. She lived in St. Petersburg in a communal apartment of Soviet times, a shared flat where several families lived in different rooms, using one kitchen and one bathroom. Life was not easy. Her father died early from alcoholism, leaving his wife and daughter alone. Svetlana's mother worked as a painter. It was hard and poorly paid work. Svetlana herself worked as a cleaner after school. Despite the harsh living conditions, she graduated from the University of Economics and Finance. It seemed that her fate would be like that of millions of other ordinary Russians, a struggle for survival, low income, and life in the same small room. But the late 1990s became a turning point in Svetlana's destiny. It was during this time, according to neighbors, that she gained a new, extremely influential and wealthy protector. According to journalistic investigations, it was then that she met Vladimir Putin, who at that time was rapidly rising in his career. The exact circumstances of their meeting are unknown, but journalists found evidence of their close contact. In the archives of airline booking systems, there were records showing that Krivonogik and Putin repeatedly flew on the same flights. From that moment, Svetlana's modest life began to change. At first, the changes were almost invisible. More expensive clothes, new things. But soon, something much bigger happened. How did Svetlana go from cleaner to multimillionaire? Why did their daughter run away from her powerful father? And how does she live today? The turning point came in 2003. In March, Svetlana Krivonogik gave birth to a daughter. The girl was named Elizaveta. In the birth certificate, the father line was left blank. This was a formal sign that the child was born out of wedlock, and the father either did not acknowledge paternity or his identity was deliberately kept secret. However, the next line, patronymic, spoke for itself. The girl was recorded as Elizaveta Vladimirovna. In Russia, patronymics are formed from the father's first name, so the father of the child was a man named Vladimir. From that moment, Svetlana's modest life was left behind. Her wealth began to grow at a fantastic pace. She turned into one of the richest women in Russia. Her assets impressed with their scale and strategic importance. She became the owner of luxury apartments in the center of St. Petersburg, elite real estate in Moscow, Sochi, and even Monaco. Svetlana became co-owner of prestigious tourist facilities. Among them was the ski resort Igora, near St. Petersburg, considered a vacation spot for the Russian elite. It was there, according to rumors, that the wedding of Putin's official daughter, Ekaterina, took place. She also owned a luxury yacht worth more than $5 million and a restaurant overlooking Palace Square in St. Petersburg. But her main asset became an almost 3% stake in Russia Bank. This bank is unofficially called the Kremlin's wallet, or the Bank of Putin's friends. It was the first to face sanctions in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. At that time, Vladimir Putin publicly stated that a bank with such a symbolic name would be protected by the state. By acquiring a stake in this bank, Svetlana turned from just a wealthy woman into a multi-millionaire. According to journalists' estimates, the total value of her assets exceeded $100 million. It would seem that their daughter's life should have been a fairy tale. But the reality was much harsher. Elizaveta was surrounded not only by luxury, but also by an iron curtain of secrecy. While her mother was building a financial empire and getting richer, the girl was raised by her grandmother. Lisa's childhood was quite isolated. She spent a lot of time in her grandmother's country house, away from prying eyes. She did not attend kindergarten, most likely to minimize contacts and curious looks. Her parents strictly dictated the rules of her life, her circle of friends, and her interests. It was a golden cage where all the benefits of the world were combined with a complete lack of personal freedom and the right to her own life. As Elizaveta admitted in one interview, her parents insisted on professional sports. At first, they took her to ballet, figure skating, tennis, and swimming. Later, she turned to creativity, as she said, to ease the control. In an attempt to gain at least some independence, Elizaveta created an alter ego. Until the age of 14, she carried her mother's last name, Krivonogic. Then she changed it first to the more pleasant and neutral Rozova, and later to Rudnova. It was under the name Luisa Rozova that she first stepped into the public space. Running an Instagram account, she showed the life of typical golden youth: expensive parties in Moscow and St. Petersburg clubs, fashion shows, trips on private jets, and DJ performances. Elizaveta studied at a university in the Faculty of Arts and Culture. But her life was not like that of an ordinary student. It was reported that she arrived at parties in cars with flashing lights and government plates, while the entrances to clubs were guarded by officers of the Russian Interior Ministry. But on social media, her face in photos was almost always hidden, either from the back with an emoji or shown only partly. The reason for such secrecy became clear when journalists found her photos. The resemblance to Vladimir Putin, especially in his youth, was striking. The same eye shape, brow line, and lips. Journalists turned to the director of the Center for Visual Analysis at the University of Bradford, Professor Hassan Ugail, who conducted a computer analysis. The result showed 70% similarity of facial features, which is considered a very high indicator. The official position of the Kremlin on all such investigations has always been the same. It is all journalists' inventions. Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov, when commenting on such questions, always stated that he does not discuss the private life of the head of state and that journalists have too vivid an imagination. He said that no one from the president's close circle had ever heard of Svetlana Krivonogic, and he considered the theory of Putin's secret daughter made up and not backed by facts. However, one curious detail added irony to this story. Luisa Rozova's Instagram account was followed by Elizaveta Peskova, the daughter of Dmitry Peskov himself. Many took this as silent confirmation of her high status within elite circles. But how did her life change after the publication of the journalistic investigation? In 2020, after the whole world learned about her, one journalist managed to get in touch with Elizaveta. She warned that she would not answer the question of whether she was Putin's daughter. The young woman admitted that at first she was very upset, cried, and did not know how to go on living. In my life, there was such a blockage, stagnation. I am very grateful that I got this opportunity. My account on social media was highlighted and discovered. I am not trying and never tried to promote myself. I feel great, no need to worry about me. My life goes on, everything is fine. I will not stop doing what I used to do because of your investigation. I will live as I lived before and keep in touch with those I used to talk to, Elizaveta said at that time. These words sounded more like an attempt to convince herself rather than the journalist that her life would not change. But everything changed very soon. After the conflict between Russia and Ukraine began in February 2022, Luisa Rozova's social media accounts were immediately deleted, and she disappeared from the public eye. As journalists later found out, she moved to Paris. To do this, she used new documents. In them, she was listed as Elizaveta Olegovna Rudnova. The choice of this last name, according to many, was not accidental. Oleg Rudnov was a close friend of Putin in St. Petersburg. He was a media manager who participated in his election campaign and died in 2015. Using his name could have been either a tribute of respect or a deliberately agreed signal for certain circles. In Paris, she enrolled in a private school of art and culture management. According to data obtained by journalists, she studied there for several years and received a bachelor's degree in 2024. Her life in France changed completely. Glamorous parties were replaced with quiet studies and internships in local art galleries, including those specializing in anti-war art by Ukrainian and Russian artists. However, the attempt to become an ordinary young woman turned out to be difficult. Russian émigrés in France treated her with skepticism. The artist Nastia Rodionova, who fled Russia in 2022, was outraged when she learned about Elizaveta's work in the galleries. She published an angry statement on Facebook in which she announced a complete break with those venues. It is important to say that I believe in the presumption of innocence and that children are not responsible for the crimes of their parents, Rodionova wrote. But it is unacceptable to allow a person who comes from a family of regime beneficiaries to confront the victims of this regime. We must know who we are working with and decide whether we are ready for this. My personal answer in this case is no. This incident clearly shows Elizaveta's dilemma. No matter how hard she tried to run away, her last name, even if it changed 3 times, and her face, so similar to one of the most hated in the world, forever draw attention to her and make her a hostage of the circumstances of her birth. In her rare public comment on this subject, she bitterly asked, "Am I really responsible for the actions of my family? A family that does not even hear me?" In that question lies the tragedy of her situation, the desire to separate herself, and the impossibility of doing so. But the lives of Putin's other children are also kept strictly secret. His 2 official daughters have always lived far from publicity. They have everything: education, careers, money, and access to the elite. But their biographies have always been under control, and their real personal lives remain hidden behind a thick wall of secrecy. Maria Vorontsova, the elder daughter, is an endocrinologist by profession, but her career is far from working in an ordinary clinic. She headed multi-million-dollar state projects in genetics and rare diseases, and through this she gained high status and the support of the elite without much publicity. Even her marriage to the Dutchman Jorrit Farsen was seen by journalists not as a personal story, but as part of a complex scheme of family business in Europe. At the same time, her photos disappeared from archives, and colleagues preferred not to mention her name. The younger daughter, Ekaterina Tikhonova, went a different way. She headed an innovation fund at Moscow State University, took part in projects for the development of science and business, and managed multi-million-dollar budgets. Her marriage to Kirill Shamalov, the son of a billionaire and a longtime partner of Putin, only strengthened her position among the country's elite. But even this union turned out to be temporary. Their divorce, according to rumors, looked more like the division of a large business than a family drama. But today, people increasingly talk about the fact that Vladimir Putin also has sons, from Alina Kabaeva. According to investigations, in 2015, in one of the Swiss clinics, a boy named Ivan was born. And in 2019, another child was born in Moscow, Vladimir Jr. The lives of these children are completely hidden from society. They do not go to regular schools, they are taught by private teachers and trainers, and there are always nannies and security nearby. The family lives in a closed residence with its own skating rink, gym, and study center. In summer, the children spend time on yachts, and they travel on the president's private plane or an armored train, the routes of which are kept in the strictest secrecy. It is said that Putin plays hockey with his elder son when he is at the residence, but their faces are never shown, their names are never mentioned officially, and photos are strictly forbidden. Their childhood is not freedom but the same golden cage, only even more impenetrable. But what exactly did his secret daughter recently say about her father that shocked the public? After several years of silence and life in the shadows, in the summer of 2025, Elizaveta seemed to make a desperate step. For the first time, she spoke about what tormented her. Elizaveta publicly expressed herself about her father. Although she did not name names, the context of her posts left no doubt about the addressee. In her Telegram channel Art of Louisa, in a series of posts, she poured out angry tirades about the man who ruined her life. She hinted at her rage toward the Russian leader, whom she had never publicly called her father. In one of the posts, she wrote about a man who took millions of lives and destroyed her own. In another post, alongside her selfie in a car, she wrote, "It feels liberating to show my face to the world again. It reminds me of who I am and of who ruined my life." These posts became a real sensation. A young woman who for many years hid herself and denied any link to politics, for the first time openly hinted that her father was indeed the man whose name had long been tied to her biography. It was the voice of a young woman with pain and personal trauma. Elizaveta's story is not just a social gossip or the result of a curious investigation. It is a story of how immense wealth and rare privileges can turn into a heavy burden. What looks like a dream for millions became for her a trap, stripping her of the right to a normal name, to a carefree youth, and to the peace of private life. Her path is a road from a secret guarded for 20 years, through the golden cage of luxury and control, to a painful attempt to find her own voice and freedom far from her homeland. The first angry lines in her closed Telegram channel sounded like a cry from the heart, as if a person who had lived many years in silence suddenly spoke out. But this story is not over yet. Every step she takes, every photo and every word is now studied as closely as her facial features were once analysed in search of a resemblance to her father. She changed 3 last names and lived in 2 countries, trying to erase her past. Perhaps her escape to Paris was not a whim of a rich heiress, but a desperate attempt to break out of the golden cage. Luxury is not always the same as freedom. We do not choose our parents, but should children bear responsibility for their actions? Elizaveta's story inevitably recalls the fates of the daughters of the ruler of Dubai, who also fled from the total control of their families. But while the world treated them with sympathy, Elizaveta still provokes controversy. And what do you think about Putin's secret daughter? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed it. See you soon.